Some villages become feared long before anyone called them haunted. For centuries, people said justice worked differently in Lydford. Here, punishment came first. And maybe that feeling never fully disappeared. This is Lydford. Welcome to Something Stayed Here. Some places don't tell you they're haunted. You feel it when you arrive. Lydford sits on the western edge of Dartmoor and Devon. Today it feels quiet, but places like this were shaped by isolation. For hundreds of years, Lydford became associated with fear. There's an old phrase still remembered here. First hang, then draw, then hear the cause in Lydford Law. In other words, the punishment came before the trial. People repeated the phrase because they feared it was true. Lydford's prison and court became infamous across Devon for harsh justice and brutal imprisonment. And standing here now, you understand how those stories survived. The silence, the isolation, the feeling that once these doors closed, nobody outside could hear you. An early Norman fortification stood here shortly after the conquest of England, but the stone tower that survives today was built in the late 12th century. Over time, it stopped being about defending the village. It became about controlling it. Beneath the tower, prisoners were lowered into underground cells with almost no natural light at all. Damp and airless, cold that would have stayed with people long after they left. Some prisoners were criminals, others were debtors, and many believed the punishments handed out here were deeply unjust. Over time, stories naturally gathered around the castle. One of the strangest involved Judge Jeffreys, the infamous hanging judge, linked to brutal punishments during the 1600s. Local folklore later claimed his spirit returned here as a black pig roaming near the castle grounds. Black animal apparitions appear throughout British folklore, often tied to guilt, warning, or death. But maybe the darker truth is simpler than that. Lydford didn't become feared because of ghost stories. The ghost stories came afterwards. Just a short walk from the castle sits the Castle Inn, and centuries ago, places like this mattered far more than they do now. Once the doors closed for the night, there was nowhere else to go. Outside was Dartmoor, darkness, weather, and isolation. Crossing the moor after dark could be dangerous. There were sudden storms and thick fog, vast stretches of open land where people could disappear frighteningly fast. According to local stories connected to the inn, some guests and staff have described footsteps in empty corridors, doors moving unexpectedly, and the uncomfortable feeling in certain rooms. Nothing dramatic, which makes the stories feel more believable. Because imagine staying here hundreds of years ago, a storm raging outside, darkness swallowing the moor, a prison tower visible from the window, and knowing the village around you already carried a reputation people feared long before you arrived. Then there's St Petroc Church. Parts of the site may date back over 1,000 years, although much of the current building was rebuilt during the medieval period. Generations of villagers were buried here. Prisoners, labourers, families shaped by isolation and survival on the edge of Dartmoor. Like many ancient graveyards, the churchyard has developed a reputation for feeling unusually heavy and atmospheric. And maybe history alone explains that feeling. Because before you even step onto this graveyard, you already know what happened around it. The prison, the punishments, the fear this village has become known for. Maybe places absorb things slowly. The fear, the memory, and the silence. But it doesn't need exaggerated ghost stories to feel unsettling. Its reputation was built slowly, over generations, through the isolation and the harsh justice and the fear and the memories that outlived the people who created them. And maybe that's why Lydford still feels different today. Not haunted in the dramatic sense, just unsettled, like something in this village never moved on. And if you enjoyed exploring this place with me, this has been Something Stayed Here. And if places shaped by punishment and isolation fascinate you, you should watch our journey through Spike Island next. Because some prisons were designed to hold more than prisoners.